It's time for another Out of Bounds Rewind with Bo Bounds on ESPN 105.9, The Zone.
My takeaway from this article is Kiffin is all in on analytics and all in on the transfer portal. Jimbo is all in pretty much on high school players and all in on coaching like it's 2001. I think Kiffin can close the gap as far as talent on the field with his approach. Your thoughts?
Yeah, listen, I think that the whole analytics thing, and I saw a little bit of this last fall, is you can't ignore the instincts that go with making snap decisions. Yes, we can say, okay, well, if we've got the ball on offense and it's fourth and less than 4 and we are plus 42 going in, we're in 4-down territory. Okay, that's fine. I get that. That's what the book says, and you're going to do that. But you can't just dismiss your instincts. You can't just dismiss what else is going on in the arena, where you're at on defense. Did you just have a devastating injury? Did you just give up a big play? Did something else happen that needs to be considered in that whole analytics equation? And I think we saw a little bit of that. I know I did in some of my broadcasts where it was like it was too analytical. You know, it was too by the book. And instead of sitting back and saying, I don't like this right now, and just trusting your instincts as a coach, right? And the more coaches I've talked to about it, yes, analytics has become a big deal. The percentages side of the game has become a big deal. And the one, 4-down territory thing that I just mentioned, I think you're actually going to see more and more and more of that as the percentages bore out, that you actually have a better chance of continuing your drive by giving yourself an extra down.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. And so, but I still think instincts have to play a role. And that's where I would say maybe Jimbo, to some degree, is a little bit more instinctive in the sense that, and you know what, maybe I'm using the term instinctive, and sometimes that can mirror the term traditional. All right, well, maybe he's a little bit more traditional in his thinking. He knows that they're going to have elite players on defense. He knows that they're going to be able to run the ball. So maybe in his mind is, listen, if it's going to be difficult for people to score on us, then we need to minimize our risks in other areas. Whereas if you're not very good on defense, now you're just going to say, well, the hell with it. We're going to take every advantage, every analytic, and every percentage that tells us we might have an opportunity to score more points because we're going to have a chance to win the game in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily disagree with some of the ways Jimbo goes about it, and I don't disagree with being all in on analytics. But I think even if you talk to Lane Kiffin, he would tell you that on that sideline, regardless of what the book says, you do have to have some awareness of what else is going on around in the game.
Yeah. Ooh, fewest in the nation? Yikes. I just think I just think he's borderline bad as an offensive coach at this point.
Well, listen, I'm going to say let's be very, very blunt and very, very honest here. We all know how the previous regime went down in flames at Texas A&M, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, Kevin Sumlin, what he inherited was great, but then they recruited some good players, didn't have a lot of results. If you look at the results during Kevin Sumlin's phase and now to this point under Jimbo Fisher, they're not too dissimilar. They're actually almost dead identical.
Yes. They're both 34 and 14 after 4 years, Luke.
Yeah. So to your point, at the recruiting side of it, and I said this post-signing day this year, and everybody was giving me flack over it because they want me to say, oh, it's the best recruiting class ever. Okay, fine, maybe it is. But we've seen them have top 5 classes. We've seen them have top 10 classes. We keep seeing 8 and 4.
Right.
So I'm going to withhold my judgment on whether this is the best recruiting class of all time until I see that recruiting class go out and beat Georgia, and then go out and beat Alabama, and then go out and beat LSU and get to Atlanta and win the SEC. Because at the end of the day, that's how those recruiting classes are going to be judged.
Kiffin and Jimbo, they had their game canceled 2 years ago in College Station. So Kiffin has yet to go out there. He will go out there this year in November. And, we'll see what plays out with Jackson Dart, Michael Trigg, and all this stuff, and the transfer. But, look, here's what I like about Kiffin is he's not backing down at all on the two things he's doing, and that is analytics, and he's all in the transfer portal. I mean, he's basically saying, and I know you can't keep up with everything, but we kind of lock in. Even in his press conferences this spring, Lugs, he's like, I'm all in, and we are going to continue to do this. And really the question will be, because he will be a great case study, is how much is too much, or is there – maybe it's not. And he's been saying, look, when we get these kids, they burn their transfer, so they can't leave us. We don't have to deal with that. Right. And this is the way we're going to do it. I guess Lane knows that for the most part, they're not going to finish in the top 5 in recruiting. So his theory is if we can finish around 20, and then I can move that number up with 10, 12, 13 plus transfers, this is how I'm going to roll. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that that's probably a valid line of thinking in his approach. And listen, with all of the positives, and there are positives to the transfer portal, especially for programs more like an Ole Miss than an Alabama, Georgia, or a Texas A&M or a Clemson, because I've said this to you before too, is like when people push back on Dabo or somebody else and they're not taking a bunch of transfer portal guys, well, the point of the transfer portal is to get your roster better, to improve your depth. Well, how many guys are in the transfer portal are better than what Alabama's playing with? Not many, right? We actually saw that with Alabama last year with Jameson Williams,
right.
But it's not 10. So why would they waste their time in the transfer portal when they can build long-term depth at the high school level with every elite player in the country? But if you are an Ole Miss, you're now going to sit there and say, okay, the upside is, to your point, we can get a little bit more experience, a little bit older. Now, the only downside on this line of thinking, and I don't think it's a downside because I don't think he'll do it, you can't do the transfer portal thing with a bunch of one-and-done guys. That is not going to help you because you will not be able to sustain long-term depth. You will not be able to build a roster, and it will kill you in high school recruiting because every kid will shy away thinking that they're going to be replaced by a one-and-done guy. So you got to be careful there. Where I think that Ole Miss will focus, and other teams too, are guys that have 3 years of eligibility remaining. You have to have some type of feel that you're going to have somebody for a minimum of 2. If he doesn't leave early, you get him for 3, and he improves your roster, he improves your depth. He adds to your point, to your high school, all right, recruitment. But you can't do this with one and dones. And I would even shy away in many instances on guys that have just 2, unless they are so vastly better than what you have. I mean, I think you have to be convinced as a staff that this guy's going to come in, he's going to start from day one. He's just flat out better than what we have. So, you know, there's upside and downside to this equation. I don't think anybody truly knows how it's all going to play out in the end. Because remember, the one little sidebar in all of this that everybody forgets about is that extra year of eligibility. When we have the extra year of eligibility due to COVID, and they didn't just give it to the person that was in their last year of eligibility, but instead gave it to everybody, that created the biggest mathematical you-know-what storm maybe in the history of college football, because you don't know who's going out the door, who's coming in, exactly how much room you have. You don't know when guys are deciding to come back and decide, hey, I'm going to play here again. Well, actually, we need you to move on. So all of that is being massaged on a year-round basis without having a hard cap scholarship number. Well, guess who loses? The high school player. So if this transfer portal thing was just the transfer portal and we were under normal eligibility restrictions, this would be a much, much cleaner process, and we'd see much faster results, to your words, on, like, let's just say the experiment that Ole Miss is attempting right now. But because of the eligibility situation, the thing's going to drag on for another 3 to 4 years.
Don't miss one moment of the Out of Bounds Show with Bo Bounds. Weekdays, 7 a.m. till 10 a.m. on ESPN 105.9. The Zone.